Before we come out to play, the band goes into, we tune up, then we go and tune in together in the Crystal Temple. And as we were there, Robert said, there's so much to talk about today. The super moon and the solstice, right? The sun and the moon. And it's true. There's so much energy around us now. And so maybe part of my job is to give the cosmic weather report first. Would you like to hear the weather?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So on solstice, the solstice and 3 days after, the sun stays in one place. It goes around, the earth goes around the sun, and the sun is in one place. So it's the ancients would say it's the time that stands still. The sun seems to stand still, and then it begins to move again. And which is interesting is that solstice is the apex. You know, after that we start losing light a minute or two a day. And that power of the sun, as we talked about at our celebration on Friday night, we have forgotten that the sun is not just a star that is there. It's not a science experiment, you know. The sun is actually a presence, a representative. It's representative of a very high aspect of spirit. It's called the solar logos. The planets and the stars of importance have souls. Do you understand? They are alive. They are evolving. And where do you think astrology came from? It's how those beings, those consciousnesses, interact with our consciousness that creates a certain opportunity, shall we say, for us to grow, to see ourselves as divine and grow. So the sun here, the Christ consciousness, it represents the Christ consciousness that is also in each one of us. So by the way, make sure that you get outside a little bit every day. Part of the physical challenges and the emotional challenges and the mental challenges that humanity is experiencing right now, especially here in the West where we're so busy and our lives are inside sitting down, outside of being touched with nature. These bodies are made to be supported by the elements. Get outside, get sun. Get sun in your solar plexus, as Tom was saying, because the spleen takes in the energy of the sun and distributes it in the body. But also, make sure that you're tuning in with life. You know, when humanity lost honoring the sun and nature, we lost the feeling of the sacred all around us. And we put ourselves in control of this earth and in control of our own destiny. And look what we've done with it. If we were supposed to be in control, I think we would have had a little more wisdom. We're not ready yet. So let's look up, right? We have a star right here in our third eye. Let's open up the Christ consciousness. It's the time of solstice to awaken our own Christ consciousness. And then we have the supermoon, which means the moon is very close to the earth. The sun and the moon. The sun is dynamic, right? You know what it does. The moon pulls the water. It's the magnetic aspect. The dynamic and the magnetic sound anything like the cosmic father and the cosmic mother? They're very close to us right now. They're awakening for those of us who are willing to just be, as Tom was saying, and this is the day to do it. Just be. And allow those energies that our Father, Mother, Source, to work our consciousness. There is a lot going to happen this summer, and a lot of that is good. It's very positive for those who are willing to take the time to step into their own mastery. We've been working all year, for a couple of years, in getting over our fears. Now is the time to accept that we are divine beings that have a human body and step into whatever Spirit is asking you to do. And I promise you, it doesn't look anything like what you think it was. Your enlightenment is going to happen exactly where you are placed right now. Right now.
I think we need to, because that's powerful what she just said, to my ears anyway, so we need to affirm back to her. And you know what our affirmation is to that right now, right in your situation, is where it's at? Here's the affirmation. Hot diggity dog! Hot diggity dog! Hot diggity dog! Hot diggity dog! All right, your turn. Why not? When was the last time we affirmed hot diggity dog? I don't know.
What does it mean?
I have no clue.
Okay. It means I have no clue. Right. That's right.
Was she right? I have no clue.
You know, when I was little, when I was growing up, my father was a hoot. My father was a hoot. Everybody loved him because he could make you laugh, and really from here, as well as from here. And my mother, you know, she was just this wonderful mother, wonderful housekeeper, wonderful nurturer and all that, but she was a little more serious. So we really wanted to be more around Dad than Mom. And so I always looked and I said, you know what, I want to be more like my dad than my mom. I don't want to be so serious. And here we are in this partnership. And he's like, hot diggity dog, let's affirm it. I said, that's really fun. I think Pop you're channeling my father. Channeling Pop. You're always good for a smile and a laugh. And you know what, we need that. I want to step aside. We have sort of been counterintuitive with the music. Tom and I have been on the yogic path, the Raja Yogic Path meditation for, I think, combined, it's got to be getting close to 80 years now. We both found the path young. And we were nurtured in a tradition where you did a very devotional song, which led into silent meditation. And that's beautiful. It's great discipline. But you know, right now, we're all being squeezed. We're being squeezed for that enlightenment. We're being pushed and prodded. The universe is saying, you want to sit down and rest? No. No, don't do it. I'll tell you what, you can sit down, take a breath, and get back up again and keep moving forward, because if you can ride these energies, it's like, I never surfed, but I've had dreams of surfing. So you get, and big waves too, I was really good. So you get on a wave, and I live vicariously in my dreams. And so you take a wave, you know, and you come down and you just take it into the shore. It's so exciting, and I know you have a lot to say about that. But if this is what's happening spiritually, get the wave, get on the board. We already paddled out. Don't just sit there and let the waves smack you around. Get on the board and have some fun with it, right? And so that's why the Soul Band, that's why we do what we do, because we forget the joy in our process of illumination. And it's easy to forget the joy. But the problem is that when we forget the joy, our children suffer. Even our animals suffer. Our partners suffer. Nature suffers because we forget to nurture it. We need to become more like that child. That's why now, and that's, you know, shameless plug for Tom's immersion. If you've lost your joy, and if you've lost the power of your inner child, you've got to take immersion. And people who have taken it are all sitting in the audience going like this, right? That's why it's key. It's such a key thing to do, and you can do it like we do a little bit of music, and then you take that joy inside. And then your meditation can just be, I love you. I love you. Right? Just, I love you. Yeah. You don't have to do any fancy techniques. Get into your heart. We've been talking a lot for years too. Everybody's been talking about getting out of your head and getting into your heart. And I think under my microscope of introspection that I do for myself, I realize that if I'm not careful, I'm more in my head than ever. Because I have more responsibilities than ever, and I have to figure them out. And I think the really odd thing is that my brain is shorting out. No, I mean it. No, it is. What's happening with the solar flares and what's happening with the other things that are happening around the planet, The brain is shortening out, and I refuse to let that worry me. I don't have the brains to do it worry anyway. But so here's what's happening though. I got the key. I found the key. And the key happened. Came to me this morning because my efforts to get into nature right now is, you've heard about my powerhouse in the backyard. We put a tent underneath a couple of trees and bamboo and stuff. And that's my outdoor time. So I got there this morning because Tony Marcia was so wonderful to teach yoga. Thank you. And I got out into the powerhouse and I just literally consciously drank nature and danced with the devas. I did my yoga out there and that sort of thing. And I was talking to nature and I said, why, when I need my brain so much, why is it shorting out? Am I forgetting words and people's names that I know? And then the inner guidance was, you're not to use your brain anymore, right? Use your knowing. I said, okay, then I'm going to put this to the test. So I got up and I wanted to do a yoga flow that I hadn't done in many years. And there's a specific sequence to it. And I said, I don't remember the sequence, but I'm going to get up and I'm going to do it. And I'm going to tap into that higher mind because it knows. Let's play with this concept. And I went up and every time I thought, it took me a second to get back into my knowing because otherwise the next sequence wasn't there. But as I did it, one came after the other, and 20 minutes later I had finished these 30-some exercises right in a row and perfectly with concentration. And I said, that's it. We're not supposed to remember so much anymore. It's all in the computer. If you want to think that it's all in the divine mind, it's about all of that meditation, all that tuning in with the divine mind. Let it just flow now. Because everything's going to flow from that. Wisdom, love, power. That all comes through the intuitive mind. And then last point I would like to make is a little bit of a diversion. So don't worry. Just if you don't, just take a breath when the word doesn't come or whatever. In the yoga class, I just laugh at myself, and then my students laugh with me. So hopefully not at me. But I am deepening. I am going. That's my promise to myself, is to deepen that connection. I'm going to get out of my mind. Anybody want to join?
Yes.
You can join me out of my mind, and you can join Tommy goes out of his mind in immersion. He goes right into his heart. The last point I'd like to make is that things are changing. Things are changing very quickly. You don't see it on the surface, but underneath, things are occurring. And one of the big signs that people are changing, one of the big signs that you have moved from maybe in neutral to your spiritual life, or maybe in one gear, back into high gear, is the level to which you care about others. And I don't mean the ones in your circle. I mean that you care about people who you don't even know. Humanity was given a whole bunch of different tests in that, not tests, opportunities to see where our compassion level was, and 9/11 was a big one. And then all the way through this century, the tsunami, the 2 tsunamis that happened, and then all these little tornadoes and stuff. These are to show us that we really do care about one another. That's to show us that we have changed, that most of us, our hearts are open. Now, like Hanuman, when he was asked, how deep is your devotion? That he just took his monkey claws into his chest and he ripped his heart open, and there was Rama and Sita, or the Divine Mother and Father, or the sun and the moon energies right there. That was in the center of his being. His compassion, his love, his service was fully developed. So there we are. There's our opportunity today. Love one another and love the divine with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. It's time. Stay out of your mind.
All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about forgiveness. And there's a little saying before I start. To forgive is good for your soul. To forget is good for your liver.
Mm-hmm.
All right? But as Trish was talking, I wasn't going to talk on forgiveness until she just said this last thing about 9/11. And I remember she and I watched this. It was a psychic, intuitive person that helped solve crimes movie. And I don't even remember the name of it, but it was a real life situation that they reenacted. And there were just these horrible, tragic murders of young people, and they were buried. They were buried. And so they started uncovering, and it was kind of out in a desolate place they were buried. And so the intuitive started having flashes about, where the first one was buried. So they uncovered it and found this, young person just, buried alive. And pretty soon she was, I don't even remember if it was a she or
A
a
long time ago.
long time ago, about she or he, a detective or intuitive, but they kept finding more bodies in the same area. Okay, to make a long story short, and it was a 3-series show, at the last series, and it got uncovered, and then they found the person who did it. This is one that you would least suspect, right, because it was just a nice person, so to speak, who kind of had her wires miscued, her brain. But they showed a scene I'll never forget, that these children were dancing on the other side, number one, because they were hovering kind of in between dimensions until this thing was solved. But you could see that their whole waiting period to find the person, which they knew, but for the law to find that person was because they were waiting in line to go forgive her. They were waiting in line because they knew they couldn't move on into the higher planes until each one went to her with all their heart and said, I forgive you with all my heart, and a big hug. And this murderer. So this saying forgive and forget, my friends, I forgive and forget in my morning meditation for all the thoughts that I'm going to have for the rest of the day. Because most of them, as Trish said, though we want to live in our heart, it's pretty darn hard, isn't it, to get out of that head stuff. And if you were to have a computer printout of all those thoughts, and then later the reality of the situation, let's say you're a little judgmental of others. Let's say even worse than that, you're horrific to yourself. Man, that you can't do anything right to that tyrant of your thinking mind, or whatever else is that nagging negative chatter. And you see a printout of that, and you know it's not really good, but it's so far from the truth on how much you are forgiven, because this solar logos and the central sun is unceasing love, and it's unceasing forgiveness. So we are forgiven right now for everything, and anything that you could deem not in tune or not helping the divine plan any, but causing other people pain or yourself pain, you're forgiven. Done. Always. That's the beauty of the summer. That's the beauty of the supermoon, really, which is that super unconditional forgiveness and love of the Divine Mother, and the solar logos, which is like, you might think that you don't feel a higher love, you don't feel good, and all those nagging thoughts that you need to put to rest. They're killing you. They are stressing you out big time. And you know why it's a little dangerous is that we don't even know it. We don't even know it, because when you're kind of stuck in it, it's awfully hard. The holy ones have a tough job. Your higher self has a tough job, meaning it works like a little crowbar to pull you away a little bit from being so identified with sadness. And being so identified, this is serious. I got to really think this thing through. The Thinker. Remember the Dobie Gillis show? Remember that? A long time ago. And so, I know, you'd be sitting here, that great scene right next to that statue, which was the Thinker, yeah? Anyway, the higher self, your good moments, your ahas, you sitting here now, and if some of you are new and this isn't your thing, you only got 10 or 15 more minutes, so bear with us. But just look at Look at the script that's running through your brain. And sometimes it's good to be put in a position, in an environment that really takes you to, whoa, this is new. I don't know if I get this, but just look at the script. Or the script anytime, because your higher self is trying to say, don't look at that. Look at something on the sunny banks of your mind. You know, draw a little picture, a happy little smiling face, and smile at it. That's the sunny banks of your mind, right? All the beautiful memories that usually get obscured because of this one kind of lower vibration thing kind of gobbles you up, and that's what the lower vibration does. But there's nothing better than the soul pack woman and the soul pack man that your belly center is, and gobbling up those lower vibrations. That's even more powerful. But can you imagine a Sunday like today where you kind of are actually looking forward to creating positive thoughts in your brain, and then finding a little tree maybe to sit under, some breeze coming through those trees, and some nice little place. Could be your backyard. Acres of diamonds are right there where you are. A little place where you can just sit there and not think. And just have instead, you'll say, well, those positive thoughts, that's better than thinking or kind of looking towards Monday and trying to get your strategies and whatever. But a positive thought is that first step to no thought, And just sit on the sunny banks of your mind and feel an invisible presence with the master by my side. Wow, that's a great beginning for Sunday, I think. And then really, as I've mentioned early on, stop watching the toy show of this earth, said one of the masters. It's like, how hard is it for you to turn off the TV? Not just the TV that's in your house, but the TV and the analytic. Maybe you're a newscaster, Maybe you're a commentator in your own mind with your chatter, right? But can that station be turned off? That's a whole nother thing. So your thoughts have gone to rest. That's the time you're going to feel joy the best. On the sunny banks of your mind. And then what about a Sunday where we reserve it for thinking more divine thoughts that will turn into perceptions and then into realization? But start with the beautiful divine thoughts and see how you can get comfortable today, really musing on those. This is what Sunday is made for. I love coming up Encinitas Boulevard on my way here now that we're living back home in Village Park. And the news guy, I got right that red light at El Camino and Encinitas, and the news guy was right out in front, I love those guys. Because they come, I always invite them over to my window, and I give them a couple bucks, and I say, keep the newspaper. And I see the the eyes just kind of, wow, no, here's your newspaper, sir. And no, keep the newspaper. And we had a little discussion. We had a little discussion that he said, yeah. I said, I love Sundays. He said, yeah, I really love Sundays too. I said, yeah, it's a good day to chill. He says, yeah, I know what you mean. I said, wow, it's really a great day for the soul. And then I think I started to scare him as soon as I started to say soul. But we had a great connect. And we're driving away, and I have a confession to make. Before I left the house, I made a little Joe. A little, coffee. What's the name of that stuff that we get? Because I can't think of it. The good stuff that's non-acidic.
Papua? Oh
yeah, Papua. If you've never had Papua, it's non-acidic. That's what they say anyway. But anyway, I got clean clothes on, and I'd taken a sip, and I thought, OMG, I just spilled. And I just visualized just instantly stains on my white pants, coffee stains, in an instant. But you see how one thought, Yogananda used to say why it's good to let your thoughts go to rest in meditation is because one thought leads to an associated thought. You know what was my associated thought as soon as I said stain on my pants? That was just the flicker of the thought that came. The thought came, stains on my soul. What? Where's that? And then you know what? And then you know what came? Just as the associated thought after that. You see how fast it works, huh? Just like bump, 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 bump. And it's conditioned and it's automatic, right? That's why you and I have some resting to do. That's why you and I have some showing up as our youthful, innocent, pure selves. And I call the immersion in love, I call it a crash course in being your true self. I don't guarantee what can happen at the end of the course, but I do guarantee this, because you know what you decide to do with your time and with your free will, and how you're going to maximize these moments or not on the planet while you're still in this physical body after you've already heard how many umpteen sermons and you've heard the truth over and over. I can't control that. But I tell you one thing. We can create an environment that's a higher vibration, and I call that a crash course in being your true self, because together, like this, you will be your innocent, pure self in immersion in love. And we can be that for as many days as we decide to have it. This is a 3-day. And it's true for those that you have come here. For some reason, we go into a high joy vibration, and you might think, well, that's fine while I'm here, but and then your mind kicks in. But guys, a little relief from the grief, for heaven's sakes, is worth it. One moment of just taking a pause from that thinking mind and going in here and feeling really your true nature, which is unspeakable joy. We are totally out of our mind in reality, right? Totally out of our mind. But you know what that third associated thought was? I had my dialogue come through my brain that I used to give when I went to confessions when I was 11 years old, 10 years old, in the big Catholic church that scared the bejeebies out of me. Or maybe even younger, whenever they had us start going to confession. Was it 7 probably? Because I think for me, a Catholic boy got my confirmation at 7. And I think you had to have a confession. So I'm thinking, whoa, this stuff does go back. And I remember my rap. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. Whoa! Wow! So I know some of us, you know, I'm not downgrading that tradition, because I grew up in it all the way through high school. And I've just taken the best of it now into my yoga experience, which is, bless me, Father, for I have never sinned. I'm a child of God. I am pure spirit. So I really have nothing to say to you. Maybe you have something to say to me. That's my new dialogue. Right? Now that I'm a yogi and I realize, what the hell am I saying I have sinned for? Because the soul has never sinned. Yes, in ego consciousness, when we're in human consciousness, we can do some things that take us out of tune, and being out of tune, that's violence to the soul, and that sense can be called a sin. But you, the soul, has never sinned. But here was my dialogue when I thought that I had sinned. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. I have disobeyed my parents 4 times. That was always my starting line. Right? I have disobeyed my parents. I have gotten angry many times. I have thought impure thoughts so many times, and this and that. And I had, you know, the rest of it that I'm not going to share with you now. But there was my dialogue for, I don't know, from 7 to, well, for sure until I graduated from grade school. So that was 12, right? And then in high school, we weren't forced to go to confession. But anyway, look at the stuff that you and I have as a script. And this new program, this new soul program that we want to install. Marcia said something beautiful on our night, on Friday night at our solstice ceremony. She said, what do I do when that thing comes under my computer and says, you want to update? Or remind me later? And her whole point, and I've used this too, is update. Update. Update, update. You get an inspiration, that doesn't grow on trees. Follow up on your inspiration. You have a thought in your mind, maybe I'm gonna get into nature today. OMG, if you don't follow up on that intuition, you're not gonna feel so good later. Because that's your word. Your inspiration is your word. You know, that guiding inner light, that conscience, whatever you want to call it, that's your word. And we all trying to have enough separation from our human self and our divine self, enough to kind of get a glimpse of that, and then be a soul hero and very courageous with yourself and say, boom, that's top priority. I follow up on that. Because every time you follow up on your word, you empower yourself, you see. This whole universe is conspiring to support you in your evolvement, and support you in you being happy, and support you in you waking up and doing something different today than you did last Sunday, for heaven's sakes. You know, there's environments, there's good environments around town. This is a good environment, right? This is a joy vibration. We don't see it as anything else than a place where we can kind of feed the soul, relax a little bit from the human drama, and just uplift the consciousness. Almost automatic here, isn't it? Well, that's the discipline on the spiritual path, that is to continue into sustaining the change of being happy and thinking of marvelous, sunny thoughts, and let them just sit in the sunny banks of your mind with the Holy Ones blessing you endlessly. And then through their grace, as the song went, your mind will become flatline and you'll mainline the divine. Meaning you'll mainline some more joy, you'll mainline some more intuition, you'll mainline some more happiness. I love happiness when you have no condition on it. And that doesn't come because I'm able to just say, oh, I can have happiness because there's no condition. No, for plus 40 years, and add Trisha's 30 or 40 years, and our combined 80, and that is a true statement, we've been reprogramming. So now, when I think of happiness, I know my soul is happy, regardless of what has just happened. And I can be happy for no condition. For no condition, that I don't need a certain place to sit today, because my soul doesn't need a physical environment. Physical environment is good to help me get into my soul, but really no condition on my happiness. So today I can just be crazily happy because I choose to be happy, and I choose to put my thoughts there, and I choose not to doubt, and I choose to rest my desires to go to one of those. Now Encinitas probably holds the record for most of these open cafe bars. I don't know if you've seen what's happening to our town, but it used to be kind of little like a quiet town, but all of these now new energies, and that's been a big, I think, a war up in the city council and all that to have that happen. But it might seem like the dark side is winning out. But regardless of that you can have a day where you choose in your own mind to be happy. And here's one way, because I started with forgive and forget, and I'll end with that forgive and forget. All right? The second chakra, that water, that divine mother, that full moon, is a place where we can go back into the womb, so to speak. Did anyone of you come from a womb? Huh? Did you? All right, now what has happened between then and now? Huh?
Life on earth.
Right? And what are your thoughts about now? If about much to do about nothing, probably. Unless they're musing on truth. Unless they are really trying to be centered on truth, they have much to do about zero. Toy show of this earth, it's not even real. So one way that you and I, in a real fun way, we can surrender that human mind into the waters of Divine Mother's ocean of unconditional love at our second chakra. If you wanna. If you wanna. I mean, I wish we had photos now of your faces, some of you, because even though we are trying to see if we can get a little uplift today, you take a picture sometime when you're in one of these thinking, serious moods, or you're drugged out from the night before, or your mind is just so conditioned that you know you're making good effort to struggle through, but God, you should see the look on your faces sometimes. Me included. And if that's the case and you see that picture, go to the mirror immediately, and Yogananda says it's so important to put your fingers on the corner of your mouth and smile. And then probably that little conditioned mind will say, God, my teeth aren't very white at all. And then the next associated thought will be, God, what am I going to do about that? You know? Someone came up after my yoga class and said, after I thought I was out of my mind in this class, and they had one comment. They said, wow, you really have white teeth. Well, that's important. Thank you very much. But we surrender our minds, even if it's for a split second. One breath, okay? One breath. This is just a one breath. A lot of you won't even attempt one breath and say, I'm happy, without the mind saying, no, you're not. But all I'm suggesting, in one breath, can you give Divine Mother this mind? As Trish did this morning, she gave it to Mother Nature, right? And she had a totally transforming morning, dancing with the devas of nature. For one breath. And let her hold that thinking mind, and you in her arms of divine love, for a moment, one breath, you guys. And then please allow Divine Mother to take care of this world, because she's the manager of it. Not you. Not you. And for one breath or two breaths or a 5-breath practice, and then go back to one breath and do that until you can say, thank you, Ma, for taking care of every detail of my life. Wow. Thank you for having your love embrace this worry that I just gave you. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the change in your consciousness today if there was one worry, one fear, and that could be you're harboring for today. You might be afraid of something. Tomorrow probably a bigger chance because you got to go back into the fray, so to speak. But you give her one of those, surrender your mind about it, and then forgive and forget. See, a lot of us sitting here this morning have spiritual amnesia. That means we don't remember this. We don't remember the truth. We don't remember the sun shining here. We don't remember the happiness. We don't remember our innocent self. Because I have sinned, blah, blah, blah. But why don't you get human amnesia? Try it out. Because she had a good point, Trish said, my mind isn't remembering names and there's that. I call those, and you've heard it, senior moments. And you know what? I love my senior moments. I love them. I love them because, oh, good, I forgot that. Good. I can smile and be happy because it probably wasn't the best thought anyway, the highest thought anyway. So you surrender some of that to her. You surrender some of that or all of it to her. And just enjoy Divine Mother taking care of your situation because that's her job. Finally, I had one yoga student. We were doing the one where you sit in the invisible chair, Utkatasana it's called, sitting in the chair, and she was like this. Usually you have your fingers like this, but she was like this, doing the pose, and like really, the opposite of what we're striving to do is let go, even though we're doing some physical movement. Let go. Feel the force, Luke. Feel Divine Mother. Mother's a doer, right? So I asked her after, I said, when you're doing the Utkatasana, the chair pose, you're like this. She went, whoa. She said, I had no idea. She said, that's how I drive my car, too. I'm like this. And then I said, that's probably how you are driving the car of your life, too. Thinking that you are in control. Next time, just let go.